Perfect. Okay, I'm going to start the webinar to at least let people in. We can keep talking,
sure.
but start that way. I'm like, okay, it is working. Oh, Jean. Hi, Jean. Aw, hi, guys. Okay, so to make sure that the chat is working, I would say if you guys who have just signed in can just make a comment, maybe tell us where you're signing on from. We just want to make sure that everyone has the ability to use the chat. Awesome.
Hi.
I see. Woo!
Oh, Shannon, hi. Oh, this is fun.
Yeah, I'm always
Melissa.
like,
My, that's great. I love it
know.
when it's like all our friends signing
Yep.
in. Jean, oh, it's so good to see you. My my conference bestie is on here, Melissa Miller Ferguson. I wanted to give her a
Oh
shout
yeah,
out.
she has the colorful hair like me.
Yes,
Yeah, I
exactly.
met her in Chicago last year.
Yeah. Yeah,
Awesome.
at Bridging the Gap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, thanks,
My
Shannon. That's so
bestie's in
sweet of you
there.
to
Hi,
say.
Kristen.
Oh, Diamond, hi, Kristen. Oh,
SoCal.
this is great. So many wonderful people. I see a lot of bookkeeping buds signing in. Whoop whoop. Go buds.
Okay, so I'm
Represent.
dialing in. I don't know why I still say that, like it's showing my age. I'm dialing in from New York City. So I used to say, like, where are you calling in from, or where are you signing on from? And I'm like, dialing in from New York City. Uh,
You
like
sound
as
like a
if I
radio
used
show
a
host.
phone. Yeah,
Like a
I don't.
radio show host. Yeah.
And it's, I don't, you know me, right? I don't talk like that. But for some reason, when these things, like we turn on a webinar, I'm like, all right, where's everyone dialing in from? Like, I don't know who I become, but that's, yeah, it happens every time.
Well,
So
I am dialing in from Chicago, the best city in the world.
dialing. That's, I mean,
I mean,
you
I'm
guys
not
have
wrong.
really good food. I do
We
like
do.
Chicago, but it gets really, really cold there. And so I have to like,
Which is why we live in
it's an
Mexico during tax
advantage.
season.
Yeah, exactly. So that's kind of cheating.
Uh, Hey, I had 20 plus years here before we did the Mexico thing. So give me
All
some
right,
credit.
that's fair. All righty. So we've prepared a groovy presentation for you, as you guys can see on the screen. Very excited. So I did this with Nancy in mind, but we wanted to make it fun and kind of informal, right? So we're just going to go through some fun topics today. We'll cover who we are and, you know, why you might want to hear from us. The chat is open. You can definitely put some questions in there, but if it's something specific, maybe use the Q&A so that it doesn't just fall into the chat and we miss it. And I'll be monitoring it as we go. So if there is anything wrong, you know, please also put that in there as well. I will start with, my computer is like, why? Okay, so who we are. First up, we have Nancy. So if you would like to introduce yourself.
That's a lot of words on there. I'm going to shorten it for everybody, especially since a lot of the people in the chat already know who I am. But I am Nancy McClelland. I am a CPA and have a master's in accounting and financial management. I have run my own firm, The Dancing Accountant, in Chicago, the best city in the world, 23 years now, which is kind of amazing. No wonder
Yeah,
we say things like dialing in. I mean, that's
Island. Yep.
talk about dating myself. And I love attending conferences. I mean, that is the thing you probably should know about me. I love attending conferences. I am an extrovert, but a lot of our tips are actually for both extroverts and introverts. I love meeting people. I love learning, and I love writing about those experiences. And so I have an article out there on expert tips for attending Scaling New Heights on
Ooh, I'll put
MSN.
those in the chat.
Awesome. I also have a video on my YouTube channel on my takeaways from last year. And then Insightful Accountant just came out just yesterday, I think, with an article that I wrote that is a summary of that 20-minute video. So conferences are my thing. And I'll be speaking at Scaling New Heights on the Tax Ready Bookkeeper. First slot on the first day. So please sign up for that.
Okay. Actually, I put in the Insightful Accountant one and the YouTube video because I had those right away. If
Awesome.
you can put in the article,
Sure.
or I continue to
Why
look
don't
for
you
it. I
introduce
have it open.
yourself for all
Yes,
of our
and then
friends?
you do that one. Okay. So I am Kelly Gonzalez. So I'm, oh, duh. Let's put my slide up. How about that? So Totally Booked is my company. We do bookkeeping and accounting services for small businesses based out of New York City, a place where some might argue is also the best city in the world. Just saying. So I've been in business now for about 9 years. I am also speaking at Scaling New Heights. And fun fact, Scaling New Heights was the first conference, well, accounting conference that I ever attended.
Oh,
And
that's
this will be
cool.
my 8th one. So I went pretty
Nice.
early on after I started my company. I attended a Woodard Group meeting in the city when I didn't know what Woodard was, what any of this was, essentially. And someone was like, you got to go to Scaling New Heights. And I was like, what is that? She's like, this great conference. And it was in Orlando. My mom lives about 40 minutes from Orlando. So I said, oh, if I can stay at my mom's house, maybe I can pull this off. And I went, and oh my gosh, when I say life-changing, it changed my processes. It kind of opened up my view of what our industry is, who is in our industry. I was just like totally reeling over the
And
fact
you
that there's
met
so many of us.
amazing colleagues
Yes,
that you ended
yes.
up becoming really close friends with and
So
doing webinars with later on. Is that what you were
yes,
about to say?
exactly that. So I was kind of like a deer in headlights at first because I was in my little New York bubble of, it was me and my aunt, and I didn't know a lot of people, and I didn't know that there were a lot of people essentially, in the space. I had no idea there were thousands of people, right? I was kind of blind
Yeah.
to it. And so yeah, so my first conference, and another fun fact, I won a trip to QuickBooks Connect that year while I was
Oh,
at Scaling
neat.
Heights. Like I won a raffle. And so I went to QuickBooks Connect the same year, and I've been going to both ever since. But yeah, so
Rebranded.
Scaling has like a what?
Now Intuit Connect. Do you know
Yes,
that?
into
Yes.
it Connect. I have to get used to that. But yeah, so conferences, I mean, specifically this one has like a special spot in my heart, or holds dear, right? But it's it changed my business, it changed my life. I mean, it's introduced me, they've introduced me, conferences in general have introduced me to some amazing people, and just kind of opened my eyes of how other people do business and how other people work in this industry, and how different we can all be, but also kind of have that same similarity, going on, where we have something in common to discuss and help each other and lift each other. And it's all warm and fuzzy. So yeah, so Scaling, like I said, first conference I ever went to. And then also really cool that I've now spoken I think the last 3 years in a row. And yeah, so I feel like I've come like full circle a little bit, which is last year I was
Yeah.
on the main stage. That was like, okay, it doesn't
Very
get,
exciting.
this is it. Yeah. So it's like
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, so I would say we've both learned some things from attending conferences, and we both appreciate what they can do for your business, I would say, and for your heart, but for your personal side of things. And so yeah, so we wanted to share all of that with you guys.
So we've got some really great topics. I am going to refer to that article that is the MSN article in chat, which I can put in there again for those of you who are just now joining. This article it's got a lot of the same tips that we'll be talking about today, but they're organized in a different way. And I really like the way that Kelly has broken it down here. We're going to talk about things that you should do before the conference, how to maximize your experience, self-care during the conference, which is possibly the most important one, lessons learned from conferences past, which we both have, but Kelly obviously has got some pretty amazing takeaways given how life-changing her first Scaling New Heights was.
Yeah.
And then after the conference.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into before the conference. I know that you have a little list, so let's go there first, and then I will. Oh, also, I did not make this deck super formal, so as we're speaking, I'm just going to show you some cool pictures from conferences that Nancy and I, well, specifically Scaling New Heights, that we have. attended.
Just gonna show you some cool pictures is underselling it there, Kelly, because I mean, all these pictures have us in it. So
Yes, most of them
you
have us.
know.
But this one was specific. So this one, I took a picture of this map, and let me tell you, I referenced this map like every day that I was at the conference. And so I put it here specifically because it was a before the conference thing. Yes, you can get it in digital form. It's going to be in the app, but I don't, if it's just how my brain works, and maybe this is how it works for other people, having it, the physical map where I could zoom in and see where things were, and it was a picture that I could use and keep referencing was a major thing for me. So it
That
looks
is a
silly.
fabulous tip. I'm actually going
It's
to
there.
update my article to include that
Oh,
tip because I did not have that in there. Now, one thing that I have appreciated in the past is that I tend to do better with paper. And so I will take the map that is in the app and I will print that out on a piece of paper before I
right.
go. That can be especially helpful for vendor booths because then you can circle which
Yeah.
ones you want to make sure to visit. So I think yours is a really great idea, taking a picture of it right when you get there.
Yeah. This was like, I guess at the registration desk, and I was like, okay, like, let me just get in on this right now. Cause like I said, it's either how my brain works, whatever it is, but I can easily get turned around. And so for me, like a major
Oh,
reference point is kind of where I like, so we enter in and then, okay, what's on my right and what's on my left, but being able to
right.
turn it around to the way I'm facing, that helps me.
Yes, that's super smart. I love that one. I think somebody in chat is asking if we can send a
Oh,
link for the map for Orlando. I don't have a link to the map, but what I was mentioning before, which is actually my first tip for before the conference, is download the app. If you look at the article that the MSN article that I keep mentioning, I have a whole section in there with how to how to download the map. There's a QR code for it. How to download not the map, how to download the app, and then all of the slides from Joe Woodard's maximizing your Scaling New Heights experience that have to do with the app. It actually has, like circles, what you should click on and how you should log in and all of that kind of stuff. And then once you get in there, you will see that there are lots, it's called SNH, Scaling New Heights. And they've got a section, it's lobby, activity feed, agenda, sponsors, speakers, maps, attendees,
yes.
your QR code, announcements, are all on that main page when you first log into the app. So from there, you can click maps. They've got a hotel map, a city area map, and a conference center map. And I will hold up my phone, but you're not going to be able to see it, but it is
Yeah, I
right
was gonna say, I'm
there.
looking at it on my phone. So on
So
there, I will say this, the app shows more the layout of the conference center. This like specific map that I took a picture of was a paper map at the registration desk. So you probably, I'm assuming they'll do it again. You probably don't have to print it out. They should have a printed version when you get there, and then you can take your notes and, I took a picture of it because I lose things easily. And so I wanted to make sure that I could find it when I needed it. Yeah.
Um, and this actually goes along with something that else that I would like to mention. So not only should you download the app, and you should also download the slides for the maximizing your SNH experience that Joe Woodard held recently. There's not a recording. I checked in with them. They don't have a recording of that webinar, but the slides really tell you all you need to know. And again, you can link you can get those slides from my MSN article, and I got permission from them to do that, and they were really happy to share them.
I think also
Good.
mentioning that the before the conference part is probably, it's the way to plan out to have a better conference, in my opinion, right? So being prepared, kind of having a game plan. So like this map was when I got there, I registered, I got it. But if you go to the, sponsor list and you know for sure that you want to get to certain sponsors, having a list that you want to go see of who you want to go see is major, because when you're there, it can be really overwhelming, right? There's a lot going on, there's a lot of moving parts, so to speak. But I think that one thing that I definitely didn't know year one was that there would be so many sponsors and so many people. I had no idea what I was walking into.
Mhm.
But then stuff like okay, how do I tackle this, right? There's 5 different payroll companies, or there's 4 different workflow companies, whatever it was. If there's something that I am trying to keep my eye on, or maybe I'm shopping around for, I want to make sure to have a conversation with them. Make a list so that you have that. If there are people attending that you want to make sure to meet, you can message them through the app as well, right? So you can say, hey, I'd love to meet you at this booth to have a quick chat or meet in person or take a picture. Kind of just putting those feelers out ahead of time, I think, is also a really good idea. Of
Absolutely. And if we could move on to maximizing the conference
course.
experience, I actually have a couple things that are related to what you just said that are in this section. But first, I want to mention that Shannon actually mentioned something really important. I'm actually going to update my article to include this, which is that you can access that conference app on your computer as well. And I did not think that that was
I didn't know
possible
that.
this year. So I am thrilled to find that out. That is really wonderful. Unlike QB Connect, now Intuit Connect, one of the things I love about that app, I think it's actually a far superior app, and I have let Woodard know that I feel that way, is that on that app, you can choose your sessions on the website or on the app, and they sync with each other. And then there's also a sync to your calendar app from there. So if you're going to QB Connect, there's a sneak peek of some pretty cool things that you can do that you can't do in this app. But I didn't realize you could access this one on your computer. So thanks so much, Shannon. I'll update the article to include that. So to go back to what you were saying, Kelly, you were talking about how easy it is to get overwhelmed, and you didn't know how many people would be there. You didn't know how many vendors would be there, et cetera, and so on. I think
Right.
that in order to maximize your time there, I think having a game plan is essential because it is wildly overwhelming and it's very hard to do things on the fly if you don't already have a plan. However, I really want to encourage people, make that plan ahead of time, but do not be married to it. Do not be married to it. Let yourself
Yeah.
leave that, like throw that plan away and do something else in the moment if you are so moved. And that's so important because, in my opinion, conferences in general, but especially Scaling New Heights, a lot of the takeaways happen in the hallways. Yes, the classes are amazing. Yes, the main stages are inspiring. Yes, meeting the vendors in the exhibit hall is so helpful for like really narrowing down what tech you might want to be using, or for talking with an existing vendor about a problem you're having, or a wish that you have, something on your wish list that you'd like them to do. All of that is great, but a lot of the opportunities happen when you're just talking with people in the hallways or at lunch or in the exhibit hall, and somebody
You have
says,
to
"Oh,
say,
I'm going to go do this thing." And if you go, "Well, I can't. I have a plan." I, you know,
no, I have to leave right now. No, so lunch is probably where I meet the most people because I
okay.
tend to sit at a table where I don't know anyone, right? So you kind of just
Yeah.
strike up a conversation. Also every year I volunteer at the first time attendee, I think it's breakfast brunch thing that they do on Sunday mornings.
That is
Um,
9 a.m. on Sunday
yes.
morning. And
So
immediately after it at 10 a.m., there is a free breakfast, but you do have to RSVP to attend that one. And you have
right.
to do that from within the app. Sorry, go ahead.
So I think so the first time that I went, being an attendee first time, I was able to meet people and kind of make connections before the conference started. And then now I'm happy that I can kind of turn it around, right? So I remember who my guide was the first time I went, and it was,
Oh,
again, it was like a big ballroom, and you're kind of like, oh my gosh, who are all these people? But then you're at a table with maybe 10 other people and you see each other throughout the conference and you say hi, right? Like last year I connected with my people on Facebook, and we took pictures together and we tagged stuff, and I saw them again, some of them at QuickBooks Connect. And so it's a really easy way. It kind of takes the pressure off of being able to, meet people. So if you're attending for the first time, don't be embarrassed. Like, totally go to that brunch. You're going to see other people, or breakfast. I guess 9 a.m. is really early. So you're going to see other people that are there for the first time, but then you're going to see a bunch of us that have been going to the conference for, I think you have to go, it's like 5+ years. So you've been going for over 5 years. I'm always happy to introduce people to other people that I know, but then also say, like, you know, if you're lost in the hallway, or if you can't find something, or I can help you find it. Maybe I can figure it out with you. You know, if you're uncomfortable, come sit at my lunch table, whatever it looks like. It's a really great place to kind of get started.
And let's talk a little bit more about not just first timers, but introverts in general, because I think that that is a really, really important topic. You mentioned the first timer breakfast, which is fantastic, and they seed it with people such as us who have been going for a really, really long time. But also, professional associations can play a really big part in getting the most out of conferences like Scaling New Heights. So for example, I am a member of Bookkeeping Buds. As a matter of fact, on this screen, there are a bunch of Bookkeeping Buds putting their arms out like this, as we're all in the same group. I'm also in Realize. I know there are some people out there that really love Roundtable Labs. There are a lot of different groups. Some of them are free. Bookkeeping Side Hustle by Kate Josephine Johnson, and 5-Minute Bookkeeper by Veronica Wasek. I know Melissa Miller Ferguson has a QBO chat page on Facebook. So those are some free groups that you can join as well. QB Community Live is another one. And so if you meet people ahead of time in those professional associations or those Facebook groups, it can be really nice to say, hey, would you like to meet before the conference starts for coffee or to connect or for a drink or whatever? Because then you will know somebody every time that you're walking into your lunchroom. You know, you can text them, make sure to bring a charger and a battery pack, because you will be probably, if you're meeting people, you're going to be texting a lot, or you're going to be like in Bookkeeping Buds, we have Slack. And we're constantly like, you know, if one person's in a session that maybe didn't turn out to be the right fit for them, they can look in Slack and see other people who've been like, oh my gosh, I'm in this session that's amazing. And you can bail and go to the other session, right? So connecting with your community can be a really good way to get kind of past that introversion.
Hold on, you totally just touched on something too. So my first year, I was like, oh, I, you know, signed up for sessions that I thought would be a good fit, and some of them weren't. And then I have this like social anxiety thing where I don't want to be the one person that stands up and walks out of the room, because like, oh my gosh, everyone's gonna look at me. But I pushed myself and I was like, I paid for this conference. I'm here to learn things. This is totally not a fit for me. And so I pushed myself. I stepped out and I found, you know, another class that was going on that made more sense. And I was so glad that I did, because I learned so much from that second class. Ingrid was leading the class and I was like,
I
didn't
know
who people were. Right. So I just went and sat on the floor in the back. Don't be embarrassed, you know, push yourself to go find, like, this is an investment that you've made. And so if it's something where it's not a fit for you, you likely can find another session that's going on at the same time that is a better fit. So the main stages and the major things totally go to those. But if you're in a session that doesn't work, check the app and see what else is going on at the same time.
And I am going to add something to that, which is one of the tips in my article, is that sometimes you go into a room and it looks like it's full. It's standing room only. And you're like, oh no, I don't want to stand for this whole thing, but I really, really want to attend this class. Walk right up to the front of the room. There are always, not the main stages, but in the breakouts, there are always seats in the first few rows. And you know what? I will say personally, as an instructor, I don't bite. I don't attack people in the front row. It is a safe place to be. It doesn't mean you're going to get called on to answer questions. Don't worry. It's okay. And it might seem weird that you're like walking in front of everybody. Look, nobody cares. Really, like not a single person cares. Unless you walk up to the front and like do a dance or something like that. But I'm guessing that's just me. I do that sometimes.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you're looking for an empty seat, walk right up to the front of the room.
Marriott's like, if it's my class, I will totally call on you. Don't.
Mariette, we're trying not to scare people.
We're trying to encourage people. But also, like I said, I sat on the floor in the back and I had my laptop in my lap and I took a bajillion notes and it was fine, right? Like I was still able to get the knowledge, the understanding of what was going on. So
And
whatever
let's
works
add
for
to
you.
that sometimes the sessions will fill up. So they really encourage you on the app to register for your sessions ahead of time. I encourage it because it helps me get more out of the conference. I actually meet with my senior accountant, who's also Kendra. Some of you know her. She's amazing. She's coming to Scaling New Heights as well. And we had a Zoom meeting where we made a game plan. She's going to attend these. I'm going to attend these. We're not attending that many sessions at the same time because that way we can bring our
Cover more
notes
ground.
to each other. Diamond, who's here in the chat, is actually her 2 sessions are the last 2 sessions on the last day. And
Mhm.
which I am definitely attending that last session, by the way. It's an improv class, using improv to have better client communications. It's going to be so much fun. But the
Oh
one
my
right
gosh, I
before
took
that,
that my
doesn't that
first
sound
year.
good? Oh
I
yeah,
took
yeah,
it
yeah.
my first year. It was very exciting.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, right before that, she's teaching a session on like what if something happens to you, you
Yep.
know, what's gonna happen to your firm? You know, what are some ways that you can set things up so that your firm can continue if you end up in the hospital or something like that, or
Right.
get hit by a beer truck, as my friend Melissa likes to say. Um, and so as a result, she cannot attend the diversity, equity, and inclusion panel that is going on at the same time. So I am going to attend it. I am going to take notes and I am going to share those notes with her afterwards. So if there are 2 at the same time that you'd like to take, if you've
Mhm.
got a buddy or if you want to put in the activity thread of the app, hey, I'm really interested in these 2. I can't take them both at the same time. Is there anyone who would be willing to, tag team on this and share notes
Cover more
afterwards?
ground.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's a
absolutely.
pro tip
Um,
there.
so these pictures I chose kind of for this maximizing the conference, because also there are typically social things going on as well. So my first conference, I didn't know that there was a social aspect, so to speak, right? So I didn't know that there were things in the evening and that there were theme parties and app sponsored, vendor sponsored things. So I just went straight back to my room, essentially. I went straight back to my mom's house, and then at QuickBooks Connect, I went straight back to my room, and I was like, oh, I'm on Twitter and I'm seeing all these things. I'm like, where are all these people? I don't know where they went or what they're doing, right? So, I mean, you can always ask either of us. I'm sure one of us will know what's going on, but apps will invite you to things. Woodard hosts some things, Insightful Accountant hosts some things. Like, there are different ways for you to kind of interact, whether it's a dinner, sometimes it's a party, sometimes it's a game or something that they're hosting.
Sometimes it's a river boat, like that one
Yes,
in the top
sometimes it's a
middle.
cruise.
That was fun.
Yes. But I encourage you to go to the things, even if you are not necessarily an extrovert. No one's going to force you to talk to anyone or do anything you're not comfortable with. It's a really inclusive and honestly just really loving community. But I mean, these pictures are because over the years we've connected with other people, and typically it's at those social events that you meet people, right? Because when you're in class, you don't want to talk in class, or in sessions, right? And then main stage is also kind of the same, but afterwards, and so I will say also, this is where self-care comes in. It's a long day, right? So
Yeah.
part of it is kind of be prepared that you're going to be going from probably 7 a.m. to sometimes midnight. I mean, depending on your style, but you can go to something, you can leave early. If it's a social event afterwards, you can always leave when you're ready to go to bed. But try to put yourself out there to meet other people that are in this industry, because I really have learned so much from the people that I've met. And while sometimes it's from a session, oftentimes it's from a separate Zoom call that we've done, or a
Mhm.
conversation that we had over lunch, or
Or
something
sometimes
where,
you hear somebody ask a question in a session and you say, "Oh, that that is the kind of question that I have as well," or "That is the kind of firm that I run as well." For
right.
example, I took a session on outsourcing, and one of the women who was speaking at that session was the person who ran the firm. I happened to say hi to her in the line at lunch later that day. And she introduced me to the people who work at her firm. And I sat and had lunch with them and asked them, okay, she says this is working for her, but how is it working for you? So
Right.
keep your ears peeled on that stuff. I think you
Yeah.
probably want to advance the slide because I
Yep.
think that's the one on self-care.
Like, it is.
And yes, while we're on the topic though of that room size and registering in the app, I want to make sure everybody knows that on the app, when you register for it, that helps them decide how big the room is going to be for that session. So it's not just helpful for you to plan that ahead of time, but it is also helpful very much for Heather Satterley, who is the person who picks all of the
Running the
speakers,
conference.
etc.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. She uses that information to assign which rooms things are going to be in, so that you don't have as many problems with something selling out or being full. In this app, you cannot also like or favorite other things that are happening at the same time. You can only
Yeah.
register for the one. So if it sells out, it's really hard to remember, wait, I wanted to go to that one. But there's almost always room. There will be a line that will form. Everybody who's already registered for it, they'll let in. And then 5 minutes beforehand or something like that, they start letting in people who are standing in line. So keep that in mind. Okay. Self-care.
All right, self-care. Kind of just mentioned it a little bit, but the long days I think are a part of it, right? So I didn't know when I was walking in, like I said, what I was kind of getting into. But as someone that works from home, it's something to keep in mind that you're going to be on your feet for probably longer than you're used to. There's kind of a physical aspect to it, right? So getting up a little earlier, maybe being out. And there's also, I think, you have a social battery, but that also pulls from your actual physical battery, right? So kind of being on and talking to people all day can, take it out of you a little bit. So build in breaks where you can, even if it's just sitting down in the hallway, maybe you have your headphones, you want to just kind of disconnect, go find a quiet corner. There's nothing wrong with that. That's absolutely, I see it all the time.
This also may not be your time zone is another thing. We're in Orlando, that's Eastern time. I am not a morning person, I will tell you. And so if it's an hour earlier in Chicago than it is in Orlando, and we have a lot of friends from the Pacific Coast who are going to be here. So do what you can ahead of time to get as much sleep as possible, and maybe in the few days before the conference, start to adjust your schedule, going to sleep earlier and getting up earlier so that you're closer to that time zone once you get there.
Right.
Sleep training for a conference. You wouldn't think that's a thing, but that is like, I'm running a marathon here,
It's true though. Yeah. I mean, 5 a.m. for them, where it's 8 o'clock for us, right? So it's a huge difference. I
Right.
think also there are things that we can do physically to help our bodies adjust. Hydration is major. I know it sounds like that's pretty typical, but some people really don't pay attention to it. Be conscious of how much water you're taking in. I bring the little like hydration packs, liquid IV packs, stuff that I can add to my water to kind of boost that hydration. Making sure to eat, that's fuel for your body. I know these sound really basic, but people forget. You're running around, you kind of get caught up in the moment, and it's
maybe
something that doesn't always occur.
Careful to not eat the crap. There are a lot of snacks and desserts, and I know that those are really, really appealing, but they will make your glycemic index drop later on. And so it's a little bit hard to eat healthy at these conferences when you're just like, ooh, look at all the things. Also, there's a lot of drinking. At least there is for me.
Yeah.
And so one of my tricks, I actually have two drinking tricks that I think are very, very helpful. One of them is called the bracelet trick. I don't know if anybody else has heard of the bracelet trick, but what you do is you decide ahead of time how many drinks you're going to allow yourself. You wear that many bracelets on your wrist. You put them on one wrist. So like maybe on your left wrist is how I do it. And then each time you order a drink, you take a bracelet off of that wrist and you put it on this wrist. You put it on the other wrist. When you run out of bracelets on the left wrist, you're not allowed to have any more drinks. You have to cut yourself off. So that is one trick to make sure you're not just like kind of losing track. Another one is if you reuse the glass that, so say maybe you have a glass of wine. Maybe I have a glass of wine. And then when I finish it, I'm going to reuse that glass to get my next glass of wine. Here's what you have to do. You fill it with water first.
Yep.
You
I was
have
gonna say
to
water
drink
in
that
between each.
water. Yes, you have to drink that water from that glass. I try to do them at the same time. I have water over here, my drink over here. The water never gets. I love water, but I forget. So if you refill that glass with water, you have to drink the water before you can put another order of whatever in there. So
Right.
pro tips.
Just I do feel like this is basic stuff, but eating before you drink, just so that you're not drinking on an empty stomach, if you choose to
Yes,
drink, um, just helps to, kind of longevity of the night. And then also for you to not feel really crappy the next day, I would say is pretty big.
now,
Um,
if you do feel crappy the next day, remember you can skip some of the sessions. I have friends, vendors who are presenting at those morning vendor sessions. So I'm not telling you to skip their sessions. There's a lot of valuable stuff in there, but your health is very important. You don't want to jeopardize the rest of your experience. So be careful with how much fun you are having because you don't want to feel crappy the next day, etc. But if ultimately what you need is to sleep in or what you need is to take a nap in the middle of the day, that's allowed. That's allowed.
right.
That's not
And
against the
then
rules.
also, it feels a little silly, but peer pressure, right? Don't feel pressured.
Yeah,
You know what your body can handle, you know what is good for you, you know what your limit is, or if you don't want to drink at all, there is absolutely no pressure to do anything you're not comfortable with. Um,
absolutely.
but moving off of the drinking, because I feel like we get stuck there.
I want
And
to talk
that's
about
pretty
shoes.
big.
Can we talk
I
about
was
shoes
gonna
for a
say, oh my
second?
gosh, I was gonna
Is
say,
that what you were
bring
gonna do
real
next?
comfortable shoes. I swear. So
Oh
every
my
day
gosh.
of my life, I have great sneakers, right? I have comfortable, supportive shoes. And what do I wear every day? I wear these Keds that are like $15 that I got from Target that are no support whatsoever, right? But I've also tried to wear them to conferences and I have learned my lessons that that is not the way to go. So something that is supportive, something that's going to last all day. I'm going to say fashion goes out the window. Don't stress it if it's not, doesn't match every outfit. If it's going to help you make it through the day, that's the key.
Although
So
I would say
that's actually
fashion
some
does not
shoes.
go out the window because part of my fashion is not wearing high heels because people
Okay.
who walk around in high heels and are uncomfortable in them are actually not
Mhm.
as fashionable as the people who are very comfortable in their shoes. So I just buy attractive, comfortable shoes. It's one of the reasons you see me in cowboy boots so often. They're very, very comfortable for me. Specifically this year, I want to talk about this hotel. One of the
Mhm.
reasons, I mean, you should always wear comfortable shoes to a conference, but this hotel is the largest Marriott in the world.
Yeah.
It is the largest Marriott in the world. Heather Satterley said in our instructor webinar the other day that it was a mile. The last time she was there, it was a mile between her room and the conference center.
Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah. There was somebody else on that same call who said that he walked 62 miles at the conference the last
Wow.
time. Now, that I was doing some math and that
I feel
feels
like that's
impossible.
inefficient. Like how many
Yeah.
times do you go back and forth?
Maybe he was just trying to get exercise. I don't know.
Yeah.
Um,
But even just tracking my steps, 15 to 20,000 steps a day is not a norm for me. And so your body is going to feel it. I mean, physically feel it. And
yeah.
so those sneakers or shoes, whatever works for you, make a huge difference. And also I mentioned to Nancy before and she laughed, but someone last year in one of my group chats was like, hey, I'm heading to CVS to pick up Epsom salt. And everyone was like, oh my gosh, that's genius,
Yeah.
soaking your feet, right? So like something that's going to help you kind of recover from the day, whatever that might be. Maybe it's, lavender, candles, I don't know, whatever it is that works for you. It's your room. You can do whatever you want, right? So
Yeah.
whatever works that's going to help you kind of recharge, do that.
And I am going to add to that list, since you mentioned the drugstore, there is a 7-Eleven. I already mapped it. There's a 7-Eleven that's less than a mile from the conference center, from the hotel. And some people have their things that just, it's their own self-care. It might not be yours, but it belongs to them. And so if that means having a uh, stopping off at the 7-Eleven on your way to the hotel, for example, or on, the day before that first day and getting a Coke, for example, because apparently this Marriott only has Pepsi products. So if that is important to you, we are bringing I called the hotel and they do have coffee makers in the room, unlike the Aria. in Vegas, which doesn't even have them in the room. They make you go to a Starbucks that has a line that like winds all the way around the freaking hotel. So this place, the Marriott, does have coffee makers in the room. However, they are that Keurig kind that has the little like
The
plastic
little pod.
disposable. Yeah. Well, I drink tea, so I can't use one of those because even if
Mm,
you have a teapot, it tastes like coffee. It's
tastes like
terrible.
coffee.
So we have a little portable, it's in my tips and tricks article. We have a little portable tea kettle that like is
Cute.
silicone and it collapses. And every time that we go somewhere, we bring that with us so that we can have, my husband will make me tea in the room while I'm getting
Aw.
ready in the morning. His most wonderful husband alive, and that is one of the reasons. So keep that in mind. You might want to bring something with you like that or stop at a drugstore beforehand. Also, things are likely to be more expensive at the hotel. So if you want to buy, a box of wine, or you want to, buy some snacks or things like that, if you're trying to manage your blood
Also,
sugar, you can buy
you
those
can
and
get a group
have them
of
in your
people.
hotel
You
room.
might find a group of people that want to take an Uber to the 7-Eleven or the CVS or whatever it is,
Or
do
to
a big
walk there. It's
shopping
only
and
a mile
yeah.
away.
Oh, but okay, so to be fair, it's like the roads there are kind of like major,
That's true.
like 6 lanes across highway type roads. So
That's a good point.
there's like
So
not sidewalks.
maybe get a group together. You're right. And you
So
could
yeah.
get one of those like lifts that
Yeah.
have like the 6 people,
Yes.
whatever, the bigger.
Yeah,
That's a
that's
good
what I'm
idea.
saying. An
I like
XL,
that.
whatever the case is. Get a case of water. I always get a case of water. Like I said, those little IV packs, whatever you need. But if you go in a group, it'll be a little cheaper and you guys can, get whatever you
I'm
want.
going to mention water for a second. If you booked through the Woodard block, they are supposed to give you 2 waters per day in your room. But if you
Mhm.
say no to housekeeping, they're not going to be able to do that. So you can just stop them in the hallway. If you see somebody who's, doing the cleaning, we always say no to housekeeping because we don't need our bed made every day. It's fine. But also, you should know that the water from the tap in the bathroom is perfectly fine to drink. I have had it before and it is fine. Same with the Aria. It's like perfectly normal water that you would get out of your own tap at home. So if you don't want to buy the bottles, whatever, you can
Oh,
also,
speaking of bottles, bring
yes,
a
that's where I
refillable
was
bottle.
going. Bring your refillable bottle because they do have filtered water dispensers in the breakout rooms and in the hallways and things like that. So you can refill your bottles. If you forget a bottle though, buy one of the 1 liter bottles of water at the 7-Eleven and reuse that for your entire conference. And then you don't worry about leaving it behind. So that's another
I
pro
was gonna
tip.
say vendors usually somebody's giving out water bottles also.
Somebody's
It's fairly easy to locate a water bottle, but um again, things I didn't know, right? So I learned pretty quickly that being able to refill a water bottle was going to be a lot easier to get my water intake than trying to find,
yes.
yeah, a place that I
And
could.
last year at Bridging the Gap, they actually gave out these little self-care packages, and one of them was a collapsible water bottle.
Yes.
Yeah, so I have that one too. It's really cool. It's like a
Yeah.
silicone thing that just accordions down.
I'm gonna also say, and I don't know what your style is, but I tend to carry a backpack. So in there, I will have my notebook, some pens, sometimes my laptop or my tablet, but also a little water bottle holder area.
I
Um,
do that too because my bookkeeping buds bag
there you go.
has a little water bottle container on the outside. Yes, that was a promo for Bookkeeping Buds because I love them so much.
Aw.
But one of the other reasons that you might want to bring your own bag, like Kelly's backpack or my Bookkeeping Buds bag, is that, well, for one, it's got a slot on the outside for water, which is great. But also, if you leave your bag behind, it will be much more obvious that it's yours because you don't have the same bag that everybody
Yeah,
got on
tote
that
bag.
one vendor's swag table. So think
Yeah.
about that. I'm going to add another one, which is I have a Hi Hello account, which is just a digital business card. There are a lot of
Oh,
different digital business cards out there. I took my QR code for my digital business card. I printed it out and I taped it on the back of my phone so that if I lose my phone, somebody can scan that and
oh,
get my phone back to me.
that's very smart.
Isn't that smart?
It's smart.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so I would say think about what you're going to be carrying. So my first one, I was like, oh, I'm gonna need my laptop, I'm gonna need my notebook, I'm gonna need a full size this, a full size that, and I was like going to school, right? So I was like, oh my gosh. And then I kind of quickly learned that I could get away with a tablet and a keyboard, really, a notebook, whatever the case was. But then carrying the swag that I had then kind of acquired throughout the conference, shoving that into, so I settled on backpack.
Yeah.
I felt like it
Hmm.
was even for carrying kind of the heavy weight and larger capacity things, but whatever works for you, I would say have something that you're comfortable carrying around. Um,
And let's
and
talk about swag. You may want to bring a second bag. Is that what you were going to say?
well, no, I was
Oh,
gonna say also try to keep it light. I feel like
yeah.
if you absolutely have to bring your laptop and there's something you have to get done, I'm not gonna fault you. Like we're speaking, I'm gonna have my laptop with me. There's no question. But I've seen people, pull out the laptop, then they have like a full backpack, and that'll also weigh
Yeah.
on you throughout the day. So try to
It really
keep
will.
your load lighter.
I am somebody who tends to not accept most of the swag because I'm an environmentalist and I'm just like, I do not need another stress ball. Although I
Okay.
do love
So my
the,
first year, I didn't know any better, and I was like, look at all this cool stuff. I still have some of the stuff. So, I mean, to be fair, I've narrowed it down now to things that I will
what you
use,
actually need. I've got
right?
I've got my little screen cleaner over
Like
here.
what's
I've
in
got
front
so
of
many
me.
things
Can
around.
I tell
Yeah,
you, this is one
my
of the most
AICPA
useful,
town hall.
helpful things anyone has ever given me at an accounting conference. It is a measuring tape. My dog
Woo!
just ran away because she's like, what is happening? So yeah, so aside from the water bottles, that measuring tape has been all over my house. I'm big on DIY, so I was like, this is the most, and it has a pencil and a notepad. I mean, honestly, one of the
Oh my
most
gosh,
helpful things. Um,
that's fantastic. Well, some
Also,
people
shout out
like
to
to
Alicia
bring.
for her little owls.
Oh
You'll see
yes,
that she has them.
Alicia
Um,
Katzhalik,
Yes. So
her
I
owls.
tend to keep the things that are either somewhat sentimental, like the owl,
Mhm.
or super helpful. Uh, but I stopped, especially I think part of me, so like the first year I signed up for all the vendors, like, yeah, take my email and they want this swag and we're gonna do all the things. And then I kind of quickly learned that I was on every mailing list and some of them were apps that I quite literally could really never use, right? Um, so I like because not every app is for everyone. Um, but the lesson learned there was that I should be more selective in
Yes.
who I was, taking swag from or who I was putting my email, on their list or whatever, or signing up for a demo, right? I felt obligated. And I think that's kind of a social awkward thing, but I felt obligated to do all those demos. So I came
Oh
home,
wow.
had I didn't know. I was like, oh my gosh, what if I see them next year and they remember that I didn't sign up, that I didn't do their demo, right? Like total freak out mode. Like they're
Poor
gonna be like,
thing.
that girl took our
Gosh.
full water bottle and she never showed up for that demo. So I was very I was inundated with demos to say the least. I discovered some cool stuff, but also there were definitely things that I could
For
never
sure.
sign up for.
For
Don't
sure.
feel obligated to sign up for all the things. If it's something that really
And don't feel obligated to
doesn't
take all
fit.
the things as far as the swag is concerned. But if you are a swag person, and this is important, you may want to bring a collapsible duffel bag or the kind of bag that like folds up in on itself that you pack to come with you so that uh, you can
Like
take
these
it
guys.
home with you. Yep, there you go. One of those. Exactly. You can
Full
take
of swag at the
your
moment.
swag home with you. And if you do it in a duffel bag kind of way or something that zips, you can actually check that bag on the way home if you need to. So
Right.
keep that in mind. I wanted to
Oh,
mention
I
a
take a
couple things
whole,
that I'm
hold on. So
seeing
I
in
found this
chat.
cool thing at Walmart, I think it was, and it's a duffel bag, like a typical gym bag that
Mhm.
zippers closed, right? So it just becomes flat. So I always
Yeah,
throw one of those in my bag just
and
in case. Let's
just
say
in
I
case.
wind up picking up something that has to be carried separately. Maybe there's something fragile. I don't know.
Hmm.
But just
Hmm.
in case, so I have that carry-on option. I think it was $10 at Walmart, and it literally folds flat. It won't take up any space, but in case you need it, it's something really great to have.
Yeah, fantastic. There are a few things in chat. A lot of people are talking about Disney. I want to let you know if you have any questions about Disney, find Cindy Schrader on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Schroeder, Cindy Schrader on LinkedIn. She lives at Disney. She can see the
She's here in
fireworks
the chat.
from her patio. She's here in the chat. She runs Bookkeeping Buds, and she knows everything there is to know about Disney. So if you like any Disney tips and tricks, please find her and
Absolutely.
ask her. She's very, very, very willing to help and excited about that. And I was wondering, is anybody able to copy this chat, because I'm not able to read all of it while we're doing this, and I want to make sure that I get a copy of this when it ends. So whether
I
that's
have the ability to save the chat. So
wonderful,
before we
please do
disconnect,
that,
I will
because
do
there
that
is
for you.
some good stuff in here, and I want to update my article to include some of these amazing
Yes,
things.
absolutely. Yes, I can do that.
Let's talk about making a list while you're at the conference for what you are going to do when you come back. So I've already talked about ahead of time, downloading the apps, downloading the slides, that kind of thing, or downloading the app. And then from the app, usually you're able to download the slides once they make those available, which I think will be happening sometime after Monday. They're going to put those in the app. And those can be super, super, super handy to reference afterward. But what is going to be more handy to reference afterward is while you are there, have two lists that you're making that are things you're going to do when you get back. Because sometimes we get super inspired about all these things that we're going to do. And you can only implement so many of those things when you get back, right? So one of those lists should be client specific things. If you hear about a solution that it would be great for a client, whether that's tech or whether that's some cool tax trick or some, something you learned in one of Alicia's like QuickBooks classes or anything like that, write those down in your client list and then have another list that is non-client things. So these might be things like I learned so much at Kelly's class last year on must-have apps.
I'm doing it again this year.
Yay! Go to Kelly's class. Seriously, it was so good. It's the by niche, right?
Right. So it's must-have apps for pro advisors, and then there are breakouts of it for specific niches according to experts in those areas.
That was one of my very favorite sessions. I actually talk about it in the YouTube video, which I should reshare here. But there were so many things that I got out of that one, which were apps by niche, where I was just like, ooh, I'm interested in looking into that app for running my firm, right? So have those two lists going while you're there so that when you get home, you have something you can go back to and be like, oh yes, that's right.
So I wanted to do this. Add on, I guess I want to, from a different perspective, right? So being that first time attendee 7-8 years ago, oh my gosh. So I didn't know what I was walking into, right? So for me, it was kind of a blank slate. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to this conference. I'm going to learn some things. It'll be cool. And this is, I make this testimonial, if you will, every time somebody asks me about scaling. I went home from that conference and I scrapped almost everything I was doing.
Oh my gosh.
Completely changed my firm so it's in June, right? So the first 6 months of my firm, in the second half of that year, I doubled the income for my firm because
wow. From implementing stuff that you learned.
Literally it was the only thing I knew, right? So like I just went home and I was like, I need to make some changes.
Wow.
Okay. But I wasn't kidding. Like I was like, so I guess my advice is to be open-minded. Yes, you can only do so much. If you're running an established firm, which I was only 1.5 years in at that point, it was very new to me. I could easily make changes. I had a book of clients that were open to making changes with me, right? So I said, hey, I'm going remote. One of my clients was like, oh, would that make it easier for you and more efficient? And I was like, yes, because you don't have to wait for me to get here on Mondays. I can help you Monday through Friday. And they were like, awesome, cool, let's do that. Like I was lucky that my clients were open to moving from desktop to online, going remote, changing the schedule, all of those things. But that opened me up for being able to take on more clients. It opened me up for being able to change what I was doing with my time, so on and so forth. I also implemented tech because I didn't know about apps and all that cool stuff until I got there. So be open-minded, try not to get stuck in the way that you've always done things. And so if there's something you really want to change, pull the trigger on it, you know, and Kristen's in the chat. Kristen knows I'm a big trigger puller. I'm like, oh, let's just try it. Click. And she's like, what have you done? I've already clicked the button, right? Like I'm ready to go. So it's my best advice, you know, it's your business. It's something that you have the ability to make changes with. It's something that you are in control of, right? So, and I'm not saying blow up your whole business, but if that's what it means,
But
you
if
do
you have
up
to
your
blow
whole
up your
business. Yeah.
business, let it happen.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah.
so
For
that's
sure.
pretty big, right? I chose
Yeah.
these pictures also, I wanted to say. So every year at Scaling on the last day, they announce the next theme and the next conference, the dates, where it's going to be, etc. Right? So I took a picture of the sign. The other thing about that is that that's the cheapest the ticket is going to be. When they
Yeah.
offer that introductory offer, that's the cheapest you're going to find the ticket for the
I
next
buy
conference.
that ticket every year on the last day of the conference for the next year because it is returnable. If you
Yep.
end up not being able to use it, then you can return it. If you end up getting selected as a speaker, they will refund it or transfer it to someone else in your firm. So I always buy that ticket on the last day of the conference for the next year.
Yep. The other picture I have here is, so this is the Cinder team actually that was at the booth on the right, and Nayo's in there. You can see her in the middle. Nayo
Yeah.
and I tend to take time after the conference to decompress. Sometimes we'll go kind of explore the city that we're in. So we'll go see some sites, do some things, do something social so that we're not like kind of just stuck in conference and work mode. But sometimes it's talking things out. It's, oh, I want to make these changes. Have you done this thing? Something to reflect on. Whatever your post-conference tradition is, that has become a tradition for us.
I
In
love
this case,
that.
we, went to lunch with Cinder and then we hung out. But whatever your thing is, or if it's time to create a thing, I know a lot of people are worried about flights and getting back home. So some people are leaving before the conference even ends. I am more the
I
person
always
like
book
I
my
say,
flight. I book my
yeah,
flight for the
the
next
day after.
day
Mhm.
because I need some time to decompress and like think about all of these things
Yep.
that are going like this in my head. Plus, there's a lazy river, and if
Yes.
your hotel room is from the Woodard conference block, you actually get free tickets to their water park, which is
Yep.
amazing. And there's also a free shuttle for the Disney parks, and some other stuff. I've got a whole list of those things in the
Freebie.
MSN article.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, speaking of that article, I reshared it in the chat for anybody who came in late. There are 3 links that I have shared. One of them is my MSN article on expert tips and tricks. One of them is a 20-minute YouTube video on my takeaways from last year. And one of them is an insightful accountant article that just came out yesterday on Scaling New Heights takeaways. So please check those out. And please, if you're interested in learning about how to be a tax-ready bookkeeper, then please register for my session, which is the first session. It's one of the first sessions on the first day. Like it's in that block, in that very first one. And then Kelly, when are your sessions?
So my session is on Monday at 5:30. And again, must have apps for pro advisors, which is a pretty general title, but we'll go over some different technologies that you can use in your firm.
And they took my recommendation. They took my recommendation because one of my biggest pieces of feedback from last year was that Kelly's class should not be on the last day because the exhibit hall was closed. I want Kelly's class to be on the first day because that way I can make a list of all of the
I
text
added
that
a
I
cool
want.
thing this year, which I don't think I did last year, but I have a key in my slides where I think I use an asterisk for anyone that's on the conference floor. So if I'm
Oh,
talking
now
about
I
an
have to
app and
retake
they're
your
there,
class, Kelly.
you will now be able to go see them. But we are at time, and I want to say Cinder has 2 booths at the conference this year, which is kind of cool. So they're a silver level sponsor, but the way that they worked it out is that they had 2 booths to cover more ground. Obviously, I encourage you to sign up for a demo with them if you're doing anything related to payments, basically. So it's not just e-commerce
was
anymore.
one of my huge takeaways from last year, and it's actually, I included them in the articles and I included them in my video because for us, we do a lot of point of sales thinking. So even though we don't do e-commerce like Kelly does, we use Cinder and Kelly uses Cinder, and we have completely different types.
But I've
we have
started
brick
to
and
say
mortar
it's like-
retail.
At this point, right? Anyone that's taking online payments, anyone that's taking a digital payment. And so it's so much bigger than just what we typically think of as e-commerce. And so obviously I want to thank you on their behalf and on our behalf for joining us. But they were they were kind enough to put this together and let us use their Zoom to host it. So I do want to give them a shout out, but also
Absolutely.
totally
We've
go
been
see them.
so,
They're
so
super
grateful
nice.
that we met them
Yeah.
at Scaling New Heights last year and had a demo, and we've been so happy using them. Even though
Yeah.
we use other products as well to do those things, Cinder was
Yeah.
just better than the others in some ways. So we
Yeah.
really love them. Mariette shared a video on the mobile app in the chat. So if
Oh,
anybody
sweet.
hasn't seen that, that looks pretty cool too. Thank you all for coming. This was a lot of fun, and it was great to see so many
Yes, thank you so
familiar
much.
faces in the chat. And if you're coming to Scaling New Heights for your first time or we don't know each other yet, please come up after my
Oh,
session
I
and
always say
introduce
that. And
yourself.
I think that goes for any speaker, but if you see me in the hallway, absolutely introduce
Please.
yourself. Please
Yes,
say hi.
I would love
I'm
to meet
always
you.
welcome to meeting new people. Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you,
All right.
everybody, for attending. We're so
So,
grateful to you. Oh,
Diana, I will try to do what I can to get you the transcript of the chat. I did just download it. So I will send it
wonderful.
over to Cinder and they can send it out, I believe, with the recording.
Great. Thank
I'm
you
so
all for
excited
joining
to
us.
see
See
you
you at
guys.
Scaling New Heights. It's coming up so soon.
Yes. 2 weeks, right?
It's less
Just
than
about.
2 weeks.
Less
It's less
than
than 2 weeks. Yeah, I think it's about 10 days away because it starts on a
9 days.
Sunday.
Bethany just said
Oh
9
my
days.
gosh, this is nuts. Oh, I almost forgot to mention I'm going to be in the Anchor dance off.
Oh,
Did
me
I
too.
tell you this yet? Yes. Tuesday at
You are gonna do
11:30.
so much better than me.
What? Do you know when your slot is?
Tuesday at 11 a.m.
Oh my
I'm
gosh,
like
we're
one of
late.
the first ones. I
No,
am
they're
not
doing it on
coordinated.
Monday
I
too.
am
They're
so
doing it
not
on Monday
coordinated, but I'm
also.
gonna do my best.
It's going to be so much fun. We'll dance together. It'll be awesome. I might be wearing sequins,
Excited.
just maybe.
You might be. You're not sure.
It could happen. I don't know. Can't predict these things.
Awesome. Well,
Take care,
I'm
everyone.
excited to
Thank you
see
for
you guys.
coming.
Thank you for coming.